You are listening to Be Amplified, the podcast with Bree and Thais, episode 28.
Hey Amplifiers, welcome to Be Amplified, the podcast. My name is Thais.
And I'm Bree Seeley. We are the co-founders of the Amplify Collective,
A movement aimed at radically disrupting how purpose-driven women connect and operate in the world.
because we believe it's not just what you do, but who you are that matters.
Each week, join us for messages and interviews that will leave you feeling amplified and ready to change the world.
Let's do this. It's Monday.
Happy Monday morning. Happy Monday.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
It felt really good, though, to let that out.
Yeah?
Yeah, clearly we're morning people. Clearly. We love Mondays. We love Monday mornings. We love coming to you wherever you are listening to this in the world. It is an honor and a privilege that you are listening to our podcast. We adore you already. You have good taste, obviously. Yeah, all good things.
All good things. So for those of you that don't know, I'm Bree Seeley, and this is...
This is the third time we've interrupted each other around our intro. So let's do that again. Do that again, Bree.
For those of you that don't know, I'm Bree Seeley, and this is...
And I'm Thais Sky, and we are here in Los Angeles, excited to share with you this week's guest. International guest. She's amazing, fabulous. Her accent is on point. And we love guests that have incredible accents. But Rikke is not just great because of her accent. She's great because of her mind and her brilliance and the work that she's doing in the world. We're excited to have her on. And before, though, we do want to talk to you a little bit about being unapologetically yourself. And what does that look like? And why that's important. Because it's important. And being unapologetically yourself, let's define that, Brie. Like, what does that mean?
So there are so many parts and pieces of ourselves, and I know this from my experience, and I'm pretty sure that almost everyone's had this as well, where we're told to like tone down, or we're told to, that's not appropriate, or there's an aspect of our being that, isn't culturally appropriate, and that we should turn down who we are in the world to make other people feel comfortable.
Yes.
And so for me, being unapologetic about who I am is being like, I see your rules and I don't want to play by them.
Yeah. Like, I remember when I was little, I don't know what movie we were watching. I must have been like 5 years old, but I was bored in the movie. And so I just went down to the very bottom, like right underneath the movie screen, and I just started dancing. And I don't know, I think I did that for like a good 5 minutes before I went back up and went back to my seat. But now that is socially like not acceptable. Like, that's embarrassing. Like, you don't do that. But to a 5-year-old, like, it's just natural. Like, you want to jump in puddles and you want to lie on dirty floors. Like, you want to just fully express yourself. So somewhere between the age of 5 and the age of 30 or 20, really, we were taught that there are certain parts of our expression that is not acceptable, and it has to conform to society in order for you to be understood. And part of our magic, our fire, our little yumminess inside of us that is who we are, and that one self-expression kind of dies. It's like we just lit out a fire, and we want to bring that fire back within you.
So I just got finished reading A Wrinkle in Time. Who remembers reading A Wrinkle in Time when you were like, what, 10 or something like that? And for whatever reason I read it, I didn't remember any of it. Like, I know I read it. And at 33, I can tell you I don't remember any of the book. So I'm reading it, and they get to the land. I don't remember what it's called, the planet. And they get there, and they walk down the street, and the whole street is lined with little kids that are all bouncing the ball at the exact same tempo, in the exact same moment, in the exact same way. And in the exact same time, all of the doors to all of the houses open, all of the moms from all of the houses walk out as if in unison, and all of the kids stop bouncing their balls and they all walk back in. And that's really kind of what we're talking about, is that this like culturally appropriate, like we have to fit in the boxes. We have to bounce our balls at the same time. We have to like all be within the boundaries of being acceptable in the world. And if we're not, there was one little boy at the end of the street who was not bouncing the ball in time with all the others, and he actually got punished for it,
Yeah.
by the people that kind of run the
Planet.
planet. And it's interesting. That's kind of how we all are, like, not to such a drastic extent, but we're taught and told at a very young age, like, you can't do that, or you can't act that way, or you can't say those things, or you can't whatever. So
Yeah, and it's like we see the people that are the most successful. We see the people that we idolize, that we put on a pedestal, and the one thing that we know to be true about them is that they're rule breakers. Is that they created their own reality. They decided for themselves what they wanted their life to look like. And so that's the irony, right? That's the eternal battle within our minds. Is a part of us really really wants to conform because our biology is created in such a way that we want to conform. We want to be sexually approved. Sexually oh my god. Not what I meant to say. We want to be societally approved in order.
that was one hell of a Freudian slip,
I know, clearly I have sex on my mind. We want to conform because we want to be approved by society. And on the other side, people tell us, and we know that it's true, that it is going to be our full expression, the fullest expression of who we are, that's going to create the life that we're most excited about. Only when we can fully express all of our needs and all of our desires are we going to create not only a life that's uniquely ours, but a life that actually is fulfilling. And so that's the eternal dichotomy. And Brie and I are here today to share with you what it looks like for us to be unapologetically ourselves, in hopes of giving you some permission to claim your own unapologeticalness.
You
And
are on point today.
I know. And yeah, and so that you can start to declare out to the world what it looks like for you to be unapologetically yourself.
So going back through my childhood, and, if you guys have listened to our feature on Forbes, you know that I definitely was one that never wanted to follow the rules. Like, our whole feature was living an unconventional life. And that's kind of been my story since I was super little. So one of the things that I was super unapologetic about, that was a little unconventional when I was growing up, I remember I was standing. This was my like normal outfit, but I was standing one specific day in line after recess to get back into the school. I was either in fourth or fifth grade. I don't remember which one. And I was wearing stretch pants because I did not wear jeans up until fifth grade. And so I was wearing stretch pants, and I had on a turtleneck and a vest and a tie.
That's amazing.
And I think I was wearing
Do you
a
have
hat that day
pictures of
too.
yourself?
Yeah, totally have pictures.
Okay,
we'll have to put them up.
We need to put them up.
So that was my thing though. Like, I loved wearing ties, and they were never just normal ties. I had like Looney Tunes ties and Christmas ties and like all sorts of crazy ass ties, and I loved wearing them. And I remember all these kids making fun of me in line in school because I was a girl and I was wearing ties. And I, of course, was like in the fourth grade wearing ties, but like I just kind of didn't care. And of course, I grew out of it. I, gifted all of the ties to my stepfather. But that was one of the things where I was just like unapologetically me. Like, I didn't give a shit if people liked what I was wearing or not. And I just kind of kept wearing it. And it's been very similar. I think I told you about my plastic pants that I used to wear in high school.
Yes, yeah.
My black pleather sparkly pants that I used
Yeah.
to wear in high school. And
when I was little, I was unapologetic about being in the limelight. I mean, ironic
you
because
still are.
well, yeah. Yes, that is true. Ironic because I had to go through a huge journey of not being in the limelight in order for me to then teach people about how to get into their limelight, or spotlight as I call it. But when I was little, I loved being in the spotlight, and I was so unapologetic about dancing and singing in front of people. And I would pretend to be a model and like walk down runways in front of
Oh my
people.
God, did I tell you this? I went to modeling school when I was growing up.
I did too.
Did you?
Yeah.
John Casablanca's modeling school. I remember my mom used to bring me up, and I was the shyest fucking kid. I did not want to be in the limelight. and I had to like walk down these runways and like be confident.
That's
and
amazing.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I wanted to be an actress. Like, I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. I wanted to be all of the things. And I loved showing off and being in that center of attention. And then as we grew up, or as I grew up, the the belief is, well, that's being selfish. Well, you have to give other people a fair chance too. You can't always be in the center of attention, Thais. And then it started to become a diminishing thing.
I say that all the time. What about me?
Yeah.
You can't be the everything type. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I mean, a little.
But it's like, I was taught that I could not claim that center of attention anymore because that's not socially acceptable. And then it took me 20 years of hiding and binging and keeping my voice small and believing I was nothing to come into the other side of believing that I deserve to love myself and to put myself out there unapologetically and authentically myself, and to teach other women to do the same. It's really cool, right? That whole turn of events. And that's life, though. That's the journey. Is we're completely self-expressed as little kids, and then we go through this tunnel of societal shame, and we get taught like, no, 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 this is how you're supposed to be. And then pretty much the rest of your life, you're decompressing that tunnel shit and deciding who you really want to be. And then by the time you get to your 50s and 60s and 70s, you're like, fuck them, I'm all about me.
So I feel like you and I have had a little bit of a like compressed trajectory on that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just gonna say. Like,
so I would love to share, for each of us to share kind of something in our current existence that we are unapologetic about.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, then you go.
This year, I have become unapologetic. Again, become. I was not always this way. It was a process about my swearing. I've been told for years and years and years that, I'm a girl and I'm so cute and like I shouldn't swear because it's just not, it's really incongruent with my image and how I look and being a business owner and how I present myself. And like a lot of it this year for me was just owning that's part of my voice. Like it's just, and like I said, it's always been part of my voice. I remember I've been swearing since I was little. When I was like 8 or something, I was wandering around my grandma's house with my middle fingers up.
Oh my God.
And she was like, Brianna Marie, that's inappropriate. You can't do that, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, but grandma, they're just fingers. Like they're not. And she's like, but they're bad fingers. And I'm
bad
like,
fingers.
How are they fingers any different than the other fingers on my hands? Like it's only the meaning that we've put on it that makes them bad. And so, of course, I was not allowed to show my middle finger at grandma's house anymore. Also, that's my favorite emoji to send to Thais now. But
Thanks. Now
it's not towards her. It's usually about something else. But it's hilarious.
now that the new iOS 10 has come out, Bree's now going to be sent.
I only send cat gifts. Only
sending me cat gifts, like the one of oh my God, the sharpening of the nails.
That's my favorite one.
It's amazing
because the cat just has the deadpan expression. Anyways, side note. So for me, owning my language and my swearing as part of who I am in an external way. Like I said, I've always owned it behind closed doors. But now I actually integrate it into my videos and my coaching and, pretty much everything I do with my social media, everything. And that's something that took a little while, like getting rid of the perception of other people's judgments and whether or not it was appropriate and all of that bullshit.
I love it. So for me in this past year, I've become really unapologetic about using all the platforms I have available to me to share my message. So for a long time, I used my Facebook personal page to be personal. And I would use my business page and my Instagram to be really where I shared my message and where I shared my wisdom and my opinions and my voice about what was going on in the world and what was coming up for me and my transformation. But what the part that I was realizing is that the Facebook personal page is a great modality for that. I have like 2,000 friends on my first Facebook personal page, and that's an incredible audience. And who knows if I'm going to be inspiring them with my message and with my voice and with my transformation. And it's a disservice for me to not share. It's a disservice for me to not put that out into the world. And so I've become completely unapologetic about stepping into my spotlight. And this happened when I went to a conference Right before I moved to California, so what, June of 2015, I went to a conference where I spent a lot of money, like a lot of money for this 3 day experience. And I was really excited to learn all this stuff. And the entire 3 days, I was bored. And the entire 3 days, I was like twiddling my thumbs. And all these people around me were getting these amazing breakthroughs. And I was looking at the person on stage, being like, I need to be on stage. I need to be owning that stage. Like, my message needs to be delivered to the masses in this capacity. Like, I'm doing a disservice to myself by not believing that I could be playing at that game, that I could not, that I should be on that stage. And a lot of money later, I remember it was the middle of the second day doing lunch, and I was all alone because I wasn't connecting with anyone there because I was kind of feeling like somehow superior, which is my own issues that I had to work with. But I called my boyfriend crying because I was like, I spent all this money. I wasted this money is what I said to him. I wasted this money on this experience when I'm not learning anything and I should be the one on stage. And it wasn't a waste of money. It was an investment. It was an investment in my dream. It was an investment in my knowledge of this. And from that moment on, I decided I am never going to let my own opinions and thoughts and judgments about where I am stop me from owning my spotlight and putting myself out there. And so that means using my Facebook personal page. I mean, Brie and I speak in multiple stages almost every month. You know, we have a podcast. I write a lot. I share a lot. I'm in the beginning stages of developing my book. I'm like in the place where I completely own that I'm a thought leader, that I have a lot of stuff to share, and I'm completely unapologetic about it. And if you don't like it, unfollow me, unsubscribe. Fuck that. Like, I don't give a shit about wasting time thinking about other people's opinions of whether or not I will resonate with them. I don't have time for that. I need to be putting myself out there so that I can do my work and I can serve those who want to be served. And yeah, it's been really, really liberating to have come to that realization. And it's cool because now I get to support women doing their own spotlight, but it's cool too because I just feel more free. And I think that that's the whole point here that Brie and I are trying to share is that self-expression when we were little, it's we feel free. We feel freedom. We feel what it's like to be authentically ourselves. And that's how it feels like for me. And that's what it feels like for Brie, you know, to be unapologetic about these areas of our lives. Of course, there's areas where we still are working on. Obviously, that's something that we're always going to be working on because we went through that tunnel. We're still decompressing. But come on, it's like there's something so liberating about saying, you know what, fuck that. This is just who I am, and this is how I'm presenting it myself to the world, and this is what it looks like, and I'm just gonna do that, and I'm gonna love myself in the process.
So one thing about this that I'd just like to point out is when you're looking at this for yourself about what are you not being unapologetic about, like what parts of yourself are you apologizing for, what parts of yourself are you changing or diminishing to make other people comfortable, my question to you would be, what are you hiding from?
Yes.
Because by me not stepping into my authentic voice, by Thais, not owning her spotlight, we were hiding from things. We were hiding from ourselves. We were hiding from our customers, our people that we're here to support and transform. So by you not stepping into your authentic self, what are you hiding from?
And this can look like anything. You could be unapologetic about being an introvert, or you could be unapologetic about, needing to have a business that you only work in 20 hours a week. This could be about you being unapologetic about your wardrobe decisions or about your gender transformation, or it could just be fucking anything. It doesn't necessarily have to even be about other people or how you present yourself to other people. It could be just a simple internal shift of you being unapologetic about loving yourself a little bit more. And it's so funny. Like, I know that if we were to post on social media, like, I love myself, like, I'm fucking amazing, people are like, wow, who are you to put yourself on that high horse?
Did you
Because,
see one of our girlfriends that just happened to?
no, I didn't see.
Yes, she posted, and she's traveling all over the world, and she posts things that she's going through. She does post really hard times, but then she also posts like sunsets and beautiful things, and someone berated her on Facebook for posting about how
Oh,
amazing her
geez.
life was. And
Yeah.
it's like, Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's like you just have to decide what does it look like to be you, to feel good in who you are, and then just practice experiencing that in a greater capacity.
Mhm.
Now, this is a lot easier said than done. And usually if you don't feel unapologetic, it's just like what Bree said, you're hiding, and there's a deep belief that is in you that makes you feel like you are unsafe if you are unapologetically yourself. And that's why I even did a whole video on this. I hate when the advice of just be you. I don't believe that that's good advice. If it was that easy to be you, you would be you, right? Like you don't just go around being like, I'm not going to be me today. Like we don't have the intention of not being unapologetically ourselves, but we feel unsafe in being ourselves. We feel like if we are ourselves, we will be judged. And so if you feel like you cannot be unapologetically yourself in any capacity, ask yourself the deeper questions like, why do you feel unsafe in this capacity? What were you taught when you were younger that makes you believe that you would not be safe in this way?
Yeah.
And that's what it could look like to be unapologetically you.
Yeah.
And it's taken us, years to find our voice, to find our message, or to find, who we are and be unapologetic about it.
And it's still a process. Like we're
Yeah,
still going through this. Like each of us have ways that we're not unapologetically ourselves.
yeah. You want to talk
that
about those?
we're that we're going through. Not really. Sure don't.
Yeah, we're still
Maybe
learning.
someday.
Maybe
I mean,
someday.
everyone has this though. Like everyone has areas where, and it's a process. There will be, when I'm 90, I guarantee you there's going to be things where I'm like, "Oh god, I didn't know I was hiding that from myself."
Yeah.
Like I'm now going to bring that out into the world, you know? It's like it always brings me back to Shrek. It's like the layers of an onion. You know, you peel one layer, there's another one under there.
Well, I'll
You just
share.
keep
I'll
peeling.
share a place where I was feeling apologetic and kind of some of that transformation. So I just recently went through a name change. I've decided to step away from my brand that I've been cultivating for the past 2 years of Coach Thais and step into Thais Sky, which is my new public persona last name. And that feels really good for me. I love that very much. Uh, but when I was in the process of developing this transformation and really honoring the call within me that my name was just not feeling comfortable, I would introduce myself here in the podcast as just Thais. And then no one can search that because my name is very popular in Brazil. And if you just search Thais, it doesn't show up. But I was introducing myself as Coach Thais because I didn't fucking resonate with that. And so as I was stepping into transformation, I was finding myself justifying a lot of this, just like what I did. Like I feel like I had to justify my decision and I had to justify this change because I was scared of what people were gonna think, and people were gonna think I'm like this frou woo woo because my name is now kind of like Sky, which is like
Moonchild.
Moonchild, yeah, and like then people aren't gonna take me seriously. I mean, my family and friends, they had their opinions about whether or not that felt good. And, I was very in the space of being apologetic and playing small around it. And I remember having lunch with Bree and our other mutual friend, and she does a lot of really great social media work. And I asked her, and I remember asking her from the energy of, I need you to give me permission to do this. Like, I literally need you to say, Thais, I give you permission. And granted, she's enlightened enough to know that that's not what I really needed. And she
She
looked
was
at me.
a beautiful soul,
Yeah.
and she looked at Thais and said, "I am purposefully not giving you permission because you don't fucking need my
Yeah.
permission."
And she was like, I love it, but it's not about that. Like, I'm not giving you permission. And she mirrored to me the fact that I was feeling so apologetic about this change. And it's, I wrote a whole blog post on it, which you can check out if you feel called to. But basically, like, it was around decision making and me coming into my own. And the part within me that felt like I needed all these people's approval. Like, just it feels good to me, but that wasn't enough. I had to run it by Bree and her and him and her and all these other people. And yeah, so I finally decided, like, fuck that. I need to really look at why I'm not being unapologetic here. I need to look at the underlying issue. I need to heal that. I need to look at that, and I need to decide. And so I decided, and I'm really excited about it. And I love being Thais Sky in the public world. I love that I have my own name that's personal and private for my family and friends. And then for the outer world, I have this name that feels good, that's easily searchable. Everything about it just feels really good. And so I had to step into being unapologetic about it. But it was a process. And
Okay, so I decided I'll share one too.
oh yeah, okay, yay.
Okay,
Oh, I love
so
it.
one that I actually struggle with a lot. In fact, I found myself writing an email today and an email last night and all sorts of things where I do have a really hard time boldly asking for my needs to be met
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
certain areas. I do this.
Yeah.
Like, if I have someone that's a contractor that's working for me that isn't doing the kind of job that I want them to do, I actually have a really hard time asking for them to do their job or to do it in the way that I want it to be done. Like, even, if I have a housekeeper or getting a massage. I got a massage the other day and she really, really, really like worked on me. And there were some times when it was painful, like beyond the point of like the good pain. And I didn't say a word.
Yeah.
I have a hard time unapologetically stating my needs.
Well, Brie, this just happened the other day with me. I mean, I'm the same way. Brie and I went out for dinner, and I ordered the nachos, and I was so excited about this nachos, and I had a bite, and I didn't like it, and I felt so guilty. I debated just eating it anyway. I debated not eating it and giving it to Mark, my boyfriend. Like, I was thinking all these things, and I finally owned it, and I said to the waitress, and it started off really great, people. Like, at the beginning, I was like, listen, this just doesn't taste good. I want to return it. Okay. So if I had just put a period there, it would have been good. But no, my next sentence was, I'm so sorry. I know this is like really pain in the butt, but like, I just can't eat it. I'm sorry. Please don't be mad at me. And she was like, don't worry about it. You don't like it. It's not a big deal. And she gave me something else, and it ended up being great. But I had the energy of being so apologetic. And yeah, so I didn't mean to hijack your thing,
No.
but this is just an example of when I was doing that too. And I feel like this is definitely something that we're still kind of congruently working on.
And when I end up having to state my needs, because I have to state my needs, especially if it's around my business, especially if it's around someone that's contracting
And
to,
you're paying
to do
them.
work and I'm paying
Yeah.
them. But I still have a hard time. So I don't apologize for it, but I add in a lot of the no words. The justs and the I think, and like I try and soften the message and like all these things. And yeah, it is really just bullshit. And I just need to own,
well, thank you for sharing.
stating my needs.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of being apologetic. And I hope that this conversation is supporting you listeners in seeing where you do apologize and just practice owning it. We don't need it to be perfect, but just start looking at it and start honoring it, because this is how you step into your authentic self. And that's what inspires people to hire you, buy from you, and promote you, you know?
All right, Thais, we have the most beautiful guest on with us today.
Yay, I'm so excited.
You're always excited.
I know.
So, Miss Rikke Hansen helps career changers and entrepreneurs overcome overwhelm, nail down their best options, and as a result, redesign their ideal first or next business or career transition. Having personally advised over 600 private clients since establishing her transition consultancy back in 2005, and thousands more via talks, workshops, videos, and online programs, she's recognized globally for offering the best practical know-how, frank advice, and proven strategies required for making your career or business transition happen.
Amazing. Welcome to our podcast.
Hey ladies, I'm really excited to be here.
So the question that we love to ask every single one of our guests is, what does it look like for you to live an amplified life?
That was actually a really easy one for me. So that's really living a life that allows me to be unapologetically myself, whether that's in my business, at work, in love, and with the people that I meet. I think for me, that is really how that rolls.
That's amazing. What do you mean necessarily by being unapologetically yourself? I mean, I know what that means, but sometimes when we talk about being who we are, some people are like, well, who else would you be? So what exactly does that mean, Rikke?
If you think about it, just the word amplified is turning up the volume. So it's really not being afraid to tone yourself down. Now, I bet you there are people listening to this podcast who's been told at some stage in their life, can you just tone it down? I mean, I bet you too, right? Either at work or in some kind of conversation, can you tone it down? As in, there's something about you that we're not really sure we like, or it might make us uncomfortable. So can you tone it down? So for me, it's you design a business, a career, and a life that allows you to be exactly who you are and not having to tone it down or apologize. And I think there's an important thing to talk about. If you want to live, I think, both an amplified or an unapologetic life, you also have to be ready not to be liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is why a lot of people don't live an amplified life, on unapologetic life, because they're so afraid that somebody is not going to like them. And then they go through life, through business, toning it down. And they're this kind of like lukewarm personality or brand or person. And for me, that's just so sad. But sadly, that's a lot of people feel a lot of pressure to do that. Does that make sense?
Oh, of course it does. I mean, I'm a pretty loud individual, and I have a loud laugh, and I've gotten criticized. People have told me to shush my entire life, and it led me to believe that by speaking, I was bad. Just by having the desire to speak something into the world, I was bad because I was always so hushed. You know, people say I'm very passionate, but sometimes they say it in a negative way. Like, you need to tone it down. You need to be a little bit more calmer. And it got to the point, well, you know, my story with binge eating and all that stuff, it got to the point where I had to decide who I was going to be. Was I going to continue to tone down for the sake of other people, or was I going to finally tone it up and be who I was and integrate all of who I am, including my messy, loud self?
But isn't it also interesting that actually now you speak for a living? So often I find that they're very, but it's funny, right, Touche? So it's funny how often the very thing that people tell us to tone down is what people are attracted to us for. So I know that the more in my message in terms of, you know, nailing down your what, whether that's the ideal business or the ideal career, you know, the more we can look at what is really uniquely you, for worse or for better, it's often that you need to tone up. I mean, the more frank I am in my, you know, my videos, my podcast, all of that kind of stuff, the more the right kind of people are actually attracted to me, because that's how you recognize your people. They're not afraid to be themselves and to be really direct and frank about what they stand for. Because if not, how are you going to know who's right for you and what to choose? I think that's one of the things that really bothers me with a lot of stuff online in the media. It's like people are sort of trying to conform in so many ways, or to belong to certain tribes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's so refreshing when you hear people who just, you know, they're just being themselves. But an important distinction I want to make, there's a very big difference between, me and my story, and actually both that and being insanely useful to other people. So one of the things that's incredibly important to me is that not just that I'm unapologetically myself, or that I think other people should be, but that by being so, you're a role model, and you're actually insanely helpful to other people. The world does not need more Kim Kardashians, right? We need people. No, but
what?
You know, I don't mind. We can discuss that one later over a cup of tea. But the thing is, I love, you know, what will be more helpful is to have people who are both famous and insanely useful for other people.
Yeah.
As in, I always say, like, I think one of the things that I always like to sort of, you know, in terms of unapologetic and living an amplified life, I think it's really about pushing the envelope. You know, how good can you get at your craft? How many amazing experiences can you have? And it often means that if you are a real amplifier like you guys, you know, you go first. Yep. It's almost like, you remember when you were a kid, it's like, oh, I'm not sure. And you're like, I'll go first. I remember, like, I used to be teased at school for that very reason, because I was pretty fearless like that. And even as a teenager and as an adult, and it's something I recently remembered, it's that kind of never be afraid to go first, because the world needs more people who go like, I'll go first, rather than telling people what to do. You go first and then you show people how it's done. I think that's a lot of being amplified is about as well.
Totally. I'm all about that, like, walking your talk thing. And, you know, I always say that when I'm teaching my women, I'm like, I'm teaching you this because I know, because I've done it. Like, yes. I test out anything and everything that I teach before I ever tell anyone else to do it. And it's so important. And I love that, like you were talking about being a role model. It's not about, you know, standing up and talking about these things. It's about exemplifying it for other people. And yeah, I totally I mean, this is totally why you and I connected. So yeah. Rikke and I met at a conference. She was the first one I ever met at the Archangel conference. And we were like instantly drawn to each other. And I think I found my biggest successes this year when I started being unapologetically myself, because I've been told forever, oh, as a businesswoman, you can't swear. And as a lady, you know, you have to be proper and you have to like all this stuff. And not that I'm not proper, but I started swearing this year. And literally the more I swear in my teachings and my trainings, the bigger my following get, which is so hilarious that we're taught to do, like, you shouldn't do all these things. But the more that we can just embrace who we are in the world,
Yeah.
the more success that comes to us, the more, like you said, the right people are automatically just drawn to us.
And that's also like almost like a quick tip there. I have this thing that I call the so me detector, as in that's so you or that's so me. So try to, when you go through your day, when you do something, you come across that you do something or say something or behave in a certain way where you think, oh my God, that is so me. Take note. Because for so many people, it's almost so obvious they don't notice. And that's the kind of thing you really need to turn up. And the people who love you and adore you, they will tell you. And also the people who don't like you will probably tell you too. But sometimes it can be difficult for us to see what's really so us. And like for you with the swearing, heck, if that's who you are, turn it up. And I also think it's a little bit like, when you have like a mailing list and people, they might, actually unsubscribe, or people might walk out on a talk or whatever it might be. It's like, you just can't please everyone. It's like, who wants a lukewarm cup of tea?
Totally.
So Rikke, what part of yourself have you had the hardest time being unapologetic about?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, here's the thing. I don't know if it's the hardest thing, but I think in terms of I'll answer it this way. One of the things that I think is really important, whether you are an entrepreneur or whether you have a job, is that you're really, really clear about who you can best help and be unapologetic about that. So for a very long time, I absolutely adore helping people, and I helped a very broad spectrum of people. But I realized that I most enjoyed working with people who are actually super smart, but who are also just very stuck, either because they're too overwhelmed and they got too many ideas, or because they're like overthinking or researching. And it took me a while to be okay with that and to be quite frank about who I work with and who I don't work with, because I was clear about who I did my best work with. And that took a while to be okay with that, because I think you could be afraid of being deemed as being elitist or only working with a certain type. But fact is, there are certain people that that I am better qualified than anybody else to help. And it would be a disservice to focus on other, other groups and them. So that was one thing that was a bit hard for me to come out with, as in, I only work with super smart people. That's one of them. I also think another one is perfectionism. And I think the best thing is, and I bet you both of you and all the listeners have this as well, especially if you've got a business, you often teach what you need to learn.
Oh, yeah.
So it sounds almost like a cliche, but before I started my transition consultancy, I worked in investment banking and I worked in human resources. And when you work in that environment, it's so competitive, it's so highly driven, and you have to have really perfectionistic standards. But then you become an entrepreneur and you cannot afford to be a perfectionist, because it's like you will just research till the cows come home and you never have a business. So one of the things that I really had to learn the hard way, and which I'm now saving my clients like tons of years and tears over, is just, you got to get it done. And it's good enough. Good enough for a perfectionist is like mind-blowing for everybody else. So I think it's really this thing about getting over yourself and test drive. Don't be, this is the thing I say, especially to a lot of new entrepreneurs, don't be a professional researcher, be an entrepreneur. And that means that you got to let that thing out there in the world and let your clients decide. I always give this analogy. I used to live in Paris. I was born in Denmark. I lived in London for 20 years, but I also happened to spend 3 years in Paris. And I had a flatmate there. She was a flatmate. So I shared a flat with someone there. She was an absolute stunner. And we used to go out clubbing. This was like in my early 20s. And she was so beautiful. And I used to think, oh, nobody's going to chat to me. But hey, that was not a problem, because the guys would still come up. Some people were like her, some people were like me. And it's exactly the same thing when you're working on something. You got to release it to the world, because you got to get feedback from the marketplace. And some people are going to like it and other people are not. But if you overthink it, it's never going to happen. So you need to let the market decide a lot of things. Does that make sense? A lot of people, they overthink and they don't release a product to the market or, a program to the market. But you got to let your market give you feedback. Don't overthink things. That's really the big one when it comes to overthinking perfectionism.
I love that. That's amazing.
So, Rikke, I know that you help people kind of get clear on their careers and stuff like that. And you have made the transition from being in corporate to running your own thing. What was that transition like for you? And what do you recommend for your clients who are thinking about trying entrepreneurialism that might not know where to go?
Okay, so My transition was actually pretty easy in some ways because I've been one of those people, and hate me for it if you want, who've always knew what I wanted. So for me, I spent 5-6 years in corporate, but I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing. I just wanted to look and be old enough to actually make the jump. So what bothered me back then was that this was back in 2005 when I made my transition, and I couldn't really see a lot of practical advice out there. So it was either like, oh, you just got to find what you love and good luck, not very practical. Or it was like, oh, let's see what you can get with what you've got and then fit you into another box. And that was very much why I designed my company and my consultancy, because I wanted people to get really practical advice, as in, do you need a career change? Should you be an entrepreneur? Should you do something else? What's the story? And I think, especially now, being an entrepreneur, I've noticed, especially in the last couple of years, a lot of my clients, they want to become entrepreneurs, or they're entrepreneurs who want to do the next thing. And I think the biggest thing is that people get ahead of themselves. So my biggest piece of advice would be nail down what is your problem. So people generally come to me because they want to find out what is it really I want to do and how do I translate that into a business. And what I see, because you asked me specifically about transitioning out of corporate into entrepreneurship, is that a lot of people don't actually take the time to realize what is actually my problem. So a lot of times I'll have really fed up corporate professionals. They're like, oh, I've had enough, I want to change. But they don't take the time to realize, well, do you need just a change in job? Is it because your boss is a horrible bastard and you don't like the company culture and you actually just need a bloody holiday because you're working all hours of the day? Or are you in the wrong company culture for you? Did you just have a bad day? Or are you actually in the wrong profession? You cannot see yourself there in 3, 5, 10 years. Or is it because you're really freedom loving and you want to do something that cannot happen within an employee setup? So you really need, and what is it you're trying to change by changing career? Do you want more money? Do you want more freedom? Do you want to develop certain skills you can't within your current role? Most people, they just like throw the baby out with the bathwater. And then the worst thing is then they go study marketing. And then they think, oh, I should be an internet marketer. It's like, give me a break. Not everybody should become, it's like, I think it's one thing I want to say, and this is something that I feel very unapologetic about, is that let's get back to when it comes down to how can you be useful? So what are the skills that you have? Because no matter what job you've had until now, there's something you always do in every single job. You just cannot help not doing it. So whether that's a communication skills, an advisory skill, a marketing skill, and a sales skill, an invention skill, whatever it is, you already have some raw ingredients you can use. So when it comes to really starting that first business, or it might also be an interest, but please match your interest with a skill or hire the skill for your interest. I think it's really important that you think about how can you build a business around what you really have a skill and an interest in. Because I see a lot of people just going purely for the interest, but then they don't have a skill to offer, and hence the client group gets very, very confused. So you see a lot of people going, oh, that's my story and my journey, and I'm a life coach. It's like, well, how can you help people? Oh, but I can tell them about my journey. It's like, that's not helpful. So I think it's really important to think about how can you be helpful from the word go, and also to know that you're never going to feel ready. There's never going to be a right time, but you start now, and 6 months from now, it's like you will have 6 months experience. You will have loads of guinea pigs, loads of clients, and you're absolutely fine. But rule number 1, get clear about, do you need a career change? How much of a career change do you need? And if you want to run a business, why and how can it be a helpful business that can actually help you make some money? What I would also say, since I'm on my high horse, I would also say, don't ever be afraid of having what I call a cash cow. So often my clients, they are in good jobs, and some of them even have families. My clients tend to range from like late 20s to late 40s. And they're like, man, I got this money coming and I can't just jump. And I'm like, that's fine. What you do is you test drive it on the side until you see whether A, you enjoy it, and B, whether it's financially feasible. And then you can make a jump over time. But if you have a good profession right now, a good job, there's no reason why you can't go part-time or do contracts. So you actually have money coming in while you build stuff on the side. That is absolutely perfect. I hear so many people being told that, oh, you have to chuck it all in and, just go all in. And especially like in Europe and in the UK, we have a lot of social, networks, and we have a lot of, people do get taken care of. But especially someone like the US, where people might lose their health insurance or there's not the same kind of safety net. It's like, that's not always a realistic option. People need to have some money coming in. So don't ever feel like you have to be embarrassed for having a job at the same time as you build up a business. Because I know some people that say you should go all in, but that doesn't work for everybody. I think here's what people often ask me, and I bet you there are people listening to this podcast who think the same. People often ask me, Rikke, do you think everybody can be an entrepreneur, or do you have to be someone special? And you know how people always like roll out these like show ponies like Elon Musk and Ariana Huffington, terribly intimidating, right? But like, remember, you need to find relatable role models who are just like you, just a couple of steps ahead. And then that will make you realize that everybody can become an entrepreneur. The question is more, are you willing to do what it takes? Because with a normal job, you can roll out with a hangover and, you know, you can sort of hang around the water cooler. When you're an entrepreneur, if you don't work, you don't make money unless you sort of scaled it. So it's more around, are you willing to do what it takes? And is it right for you? You know, maybe what you really want already exists within a company and you can go work with them. Or it might be you have to start your own thing, but you've got to be willing to do the work.
Brie and I, we talk a lot about how not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur because because a lot of people make entrepreneurialism seem so easy and seem so, you know, just these 5 steps and you'll have a 6-figure month. And those things aren't true. 2, they tend to have a lot of backstory that we don't hear. If they have found the 6 figures in 6 months, they probably have had the business for 10 years or whatever. And 3, and this is something that Brie and I actually talked to the students at USC a few weeks ago, is that when we went into entrepreneurialism, we sacrificed everything. We put everything on the line. I left my family, my friends, everything I knew on the East Coast. You know, I slept on mattresses. I came close to being bankrupt. I sacrificed everything. And that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has to sacrifice and lose everything to be successful in entrepreneurialism, but that's what it takes. It takes you being willing to risk everything for this vision that you have in your life, for this vision that you can be of service in this capacity. And some people, you know, they don't need to sacrifice everything, but that's just my story. And I found that it was because I was willing to do everything in my capacity to make this happen for me that has led me to where I am and has led me to the success I've found. So I love that you're talking about this, and I love that, you know, you're very real with people, that you have, in order for you to be an entrepreneur, you just have to be willing to put it all in.
Yeah, and I also think I love that you raised that. I mean, I have personally advised 600 clients one-on-one, and some of them have been people who already made the jump to entrepreneurship, and then they're looking for the next thing. So let's take this discussion even further, because I think this is really, really important. Like you say, entrepreneurship is not the answer to all of your question, but it's right for some people. And I bet for the 3 of us in this call, we couldn't have it any other way, because it's
absolutely not.
You know. But I also think it's important to talk about the fact that even for some entrepreneurs who have made the jump and who are entrepreneurs, it might not be the right thing for them. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with going back and getting a job. If that's, I work, it's really interesting. Let me tell you a story. So when I first started out, I purely worked with career changers. So, you know, help them start their first business or make a career transition. It depends on what's right for them, right? But then what I noticed over the last couple of years, I actually have a lot of people who are already entrepreneurs who are coming to me and they have exactly the same problem. Oh, I'm not happy. You know, I wonder what kind of transition I should make or this and that. So whether you are in a job right now and you're not happy, you want to do something more meaningful, something more unapologetically you, or whether you're an entrepreneur in the same situation, it's exactly the same thing. There is no right answer for anyone. And also what I would say, sometimes for some people, it might be certain times in their lives. Being an entrepreneur is absolutely the perfect for that period in their lives. Whereas for other periods, maybe they're better off working for someone else or doing contract work. So, you know, your what in terms of, you know, the ideal business, the ideal career for you, that can change throughout your life. I literally get hot flushes when I hear people saying, you came here to do one thing. It's like bullshit. It's like you're some kind of one-dimensional being. No, you know, hopefully you do change and you do grow. And even more importantly, the world changes. Just think about the last 18, 24 months, the last couple of years. Just think about the world is beyond recognition. And we're never going to go back to what used to be deemed normal. Mm-hmm. So you need to be really nimble and open to the fact that whether it's a job you have or a business you have, you are likely to change. It might want to change and reflect what's going on in your life. What matters is, and I want to say this to everybody listening, is that what you just, the most safety you can have, the way the entrepreneurship market works, the way the job market works. Know what your key ingredients are. Know what your key skills are. What is it you're really good at? What is it you really, really enjoy? And what is it? What are the experiences you want to have? So often people get so caught up in, oh, I want to follow my passion. It's like, yeah, that's all very well, but what the heck does that mean in terms of how, I see this happening so much. And like so many people that end up doing pseudo online marketing rather than actually, for some people, I have some very close friends who are phenomenal at that and they love it. But for a lot of people sitting there doing ClickFunnels and online stuff all day is not the idea of heaven. Some people actually do want to really hone a skill and become exceptionally good at their craft. They want to connect with people. They want to learn. They really want to feel like they're making a difference. So, one of the things I'm most passionate about is, helping people create businesses or careers that either never existed before or that are totally tailored to them. Because I remember when I grew up in Denmark, we had this career A to Z. And it was like this small book. And I remember thinking, I was probably about 12 or 13 looking at this book and thinking, holy crap, how many people do you have in the world? And you can fit everything I can possibly do in my lifetime into that tiny book. But it's so funny when people, they think about transitions, they still only think about that limited amount of thing. Oh, maybe I become a lawyer or a teacher or a nurse or an internet marketer. It's like, give me a break. There are careers and businesses and paths being created every single day that never existed before or that only exist because of you. So think really, really broadly and don't be hung up whether it's called being an entrepreneur or a career, whatever it is, as long as it works for you and is insanely useful to other people. I'll step up my horse now.
I love this conversation because I truly believe that one of the most essential attributes for any entrepreneur is this idea of flexibility, this idea to roll with the changes. It's not even necessarily about the financial collapse in 2008, but like more so the people that were willing to roll with that change and adjust themselves and adjust their businesses to kind of fit with what was happening. Like if we're so rigid and we only stay with this one idea and we don't change our minds, or we don't adaptability, that's the word I've been looking for. If we don't adapt to what's happening in the marketplace or what our customers want or any of that kind of stuff, that's when things fall apart and they fail. Because like you said, the world is changing so much, even in the last 18 months, that if you're still looking through the lens or the filter of 18 months ago and you're not acclimating your business to today, then you're going to be stuck and your business is probably going to fail. And this all goes along too with the conversation around career change and stuff like that. Like if you're still looking at through the lens of the 1950s or whatever, where you got one job, you stayed in it forever, you got your retirement, and then, you were done. Like that's not how things work anymore. And so Thais and I always say this idea of giving yourself permission to change your mind, whether it's a full career or whether it's within your business, a smaller decision to change your mind, to adapt to what's going on in the marketplace or whatever. I truly think adaptability is the biggest factor in success for entrepreneurs.
I love it. It's what makes it exciting. It's like,
well, yeah, that too.
We all have that in common, right? It's like, do you know an entrepreneur who's not easily bored? It's like, it's a double whammy of a good thing, right?
Yeah. Yes. All of the yeses. So tell us, Rikke, for people who want to know more about you, they want to learn more about how to, shift their career, go into entrepreneurialism and work with you, where can they find you?
The best place is always my website. That's where the real party is. So that's rikke.me, and that's spelled RIKKE.me. So rikke.me. That's a very old Danish word, but that's what I prefer to use. So rikke.me. So come on over. That's the best place. I do loads of videos and it's very frank, very direct. So if you want something that's very helpful, you can apply straight away, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an aspiring entrepreneur or you are somebody with a job. That's where we hang out.
Amazing.
I was going to mention to go watch your videos because I showed Thais a few of them a few weeks ago before we got on the call with you. Just to give her an idea of, obviously I know you, but yeah, I love Rikke's videos. They are very helpful, very useful, very practical. And she's super cute too. She's blonde and she's super cute. She's fun to watch. So
I don't look at all like I sound. I look very different.
I love it.
I think you look unapologetically like Rikke looks.
Fuck yeah.
You just, yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Rikke, for coming on to our podcast, for sharing your brilliance with our audience. I know many, many women probably got so much good stuff from this conversation.
And also thank you so much for what you do. I love what you do, and just be amplified, be unapologetic. We need more relatable role models. So let's do this, ladies.
Yes. And for those of you listening, you can find us at theamplifycollective.com. We have some amazing events coming up, including a really big, exciting thing happening in December. So stay tuned for that. And and you can find us on social media at The Amplify Co. Sending all of you all of our love, and go be amplified.